All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the work session for the City Council for the City of Wildwood for Monday, November the 8th, 2021. Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Bolin,
Here.
Councilmember Galani, Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Jaxie,
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Bros,
Here.
Councilmember Garitano,
Here.
Councilmember Flasher,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Nyan,
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
All right, welcome, everyone. Good to see you. I would also like to extend a special welcome to our new member of the team, Ms. Ripito, who is our Assistant Director of Planning and Parks. Welcome. Glad you're here. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, moving into informational items, we have 16. Is there anything that anyone would like to talk about under information before we move to action items? Councilor Bertolino?
This is for Joe. On the annexation request for MSD, do you need a motion on that or anything? I didn't see anything on the agenda.
Mr. Bertolino, with the mayor's permission, the city administrator and the Department of Planning and Parks considered where best to put the item on tonight's work session agenda. And both of us felt that if there were no questions or if there was no direction taken, we would proceed forward with the letter of support.
So it doesn't require any action by the council then?
No, truly, this is for information. As noted in the memorandum, the master plan has a clear goal in that if sanitary sewer service from a public entity can be provided, we should always pursue it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I think I saw another hand somewhere. Councilmember Edens.
Yes, under economic development, you all saw some flyers that we attached. I just want to draw your attention that we are bringing back the snowman search. It's going to start at the end of this month, and we're still continuing on with our Winter Fest. And so it's not included, but we are also in the process of signing up businesses that are interested to partner with our wonderful Lafayette art students for window painting to bring some holiday joy to town center and other area businesses. So we are still continuing with traditions, and we're coming out of the worst parts of the pandemic on a high note. But what I do need, and I'm really not clear because I think we're overworked on budget and lots of things. So I just need to know who do I ask and who is responsible for updating the city website and social media? Because what I need is when I say me, I mean we collectively and economic development, we need to add on the city calendar, the event date for the Winterfest. We need to update the snowman search page. We need to update social media and also make sure it goes out on our e-newsletters. And so I just don't know who I need to talk.
I think it would be the city administrator, just he's aware. So if you two
Okay.
can link up tomorrow and get that done. Or
And so, yes, and so as we get information in on which businesses choose to participate in snowman search, the idea is that just like before, I know some of you guys are new and this will be the first one that you've been around to participate in, but we created a map of local businesses that were participating in a list for the website. So that will kind of be a rolling update that will need to happen as we hear back from the Wildwood Business Association. So I know everybody's busy, but we got to get it up sooner than later just to let our residents know about our event to make it successful. So thank you.
okay, thank you. Councilmember Clark.
Concerning the Prime Place, I just wanted to make sure that my concerns were understood about the parking, that I was listening on planning and zoning and my chats were not seen for some reason. I don't know why, probably on my end, but I had tried to respond that the concern I have is that we have taken the number of spaces, of parking spaces, and determined how many parking, accessible parking spaces we need, but we need to address each one of those structures or parking lots as individual parking lots. So the parking on the road is separate in calculating the number of spaces from the back parking lot that is connected to the prime place. So each one of them would have to be assessed and with a number of parking places. We couldn't take the whole thing as a total and determine we need a certain number of spaces and put them wherever.
I think there was a response at our last P&Z meeting or the one before, maybe relative to that. Mr. Venich, would you like to respond to Councilmember Clark's item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. Ms. Clark, as you know, the Department of Planning shared your concerns about not just the number of accessible spaces, but proximity to where they are needed. As with any C8 planned commercial district, there is actually a Mylar that'll be recorded for the site development plan with St. Louis County. We have yet to receive that, so I can guarantee you we won't proceed forward until we have accessible spaces near that south entry door into the residential tower. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Venich. And on the drawings, I just wanted to point out that also on the drawings they're still referring to these spaces as HC handicap, where ADA has removed handicap and handicapped from all of their documentation. Thank you.
Mr. Venich?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll advise Stock and Associates that they need to reflect the latest language relative to those accessible spaces. And thank you for catching that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else under Councilmember Clark?
On a different item on the strategic plan, I was wondering, when are we going to review that again and make updates? We had talked about when we finalized it, that we would review it periodically to update it, adjust it.
So that hasn't been determined yet. But my thought at the moment would be at some point in the next 6 to 8 months to present to the council the option of reviewing that on an annual basis. Ultimately, it'll be up to the council if you want to do it. Not as much as that or less than that or more than that, but I think an annual review would be a good place to start and would be appropriate. I just haven't gotten to the point of making that suggestion to the council yet. You're welcome. Anything else under information? All right, seeing none, that goes takes us into action items, and we have a couple here. So with the council's permission, as I looked at the agenda today, I'm editing my own edits on the chronology here. What I think may expedite the meeting and help our city team members is if we rearrange the remainder of the agenda to the following. Let's go ahead and do it. I would suggest the receipt and files, get that out of the way. And then we'll do these in reverse order. And then we'll go into, assuming the council wants to do that and approves it in executive session. And then last, we will discuss the first item, which is our next meeting. Is there any objection to doing that? Any member of the council? Okay, so thank you for that. And Joe, with that, moving into the receipt and files, the first is PZ 25-97 Sprint Spectrum LP, the tower.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, Mr. Newberry is sharing a photograph of the Marinus site that is on Route 109 near its intersection with Alt Road. There has been a telecommunications tower on that particular parcel of ground for almost 20 years, and Mr. Newberry is identifying it with the cursor. As with any conditional use permit and action taken by the Planning and Zoning Commission, the City Council has the right to exercise its power of review. That power of review must be exercised within 15 days of the receipt of the report and recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So first and foremost, you are receiving the recommendation and action of the Planning and Zoning Commission, so that clock is now ticking. The department would note that the Planning and Zoning Commission did support the annual renewal, noting again that the facility is in good condition and complies with all the requirements associated with the conditional use permit that governs the site. If there are any questions regarding the action of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Mayor Boland, Councilmember Brost, or I are available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from any member of the council or thoughts relative to this particular receipt and file item? Okay, seeing none. Next, actually the next two, which are related, the Planning and Zoning Commission's work program for 2021, and then item 3 is the work program for the commission for 2022. Mr. Vinich.
And again, as the mayor has so appropriately identified, these are more for information. And again, the mayor, the city council liaison to Planning and Zoning Commission, and I are available to answer any questions regarding them.
Thank you. Any questions from any member of the council or any comments on items 2 and 3 of the receipt and file? All right, seeing none. Last item 4, the Planning and Zoning Commission 5-year capital improvement plan.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, a community that exercises zoning under state statute must also have its Planning and Zoning Commission review the capital improvements program for the 5-year window established therein. The Planning and Zoning did take up the review of the capital improvements plan for that 5-year window at its last meeting. And at the conclusion of that meeting, voted I had a tally of 9-1 to support the 5-year capital improvement plan as presented by City Council at its last meeting on this subject. So tonight you are in receipt of the recommendation report from the Planning and Zoning Commission. That report complies with state statute in this regard. And again, if there are any questions regarding the matter, the mayor, the council liaison to Planning and Zoning Commission, Mr. Brost, and I are available for any comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dodwell.
I did have one question on the State Route 109 and BA roundabout. I see that we've got the design and engineering being completed in the next 5 years. I know we have a lot of residents that were hopeful that that was going to be actually implemented, at least in that time period. If we're 5 years out for design and engineering, then what is our timeline for actual implementation?
Mr. Brown, Director of Public Works, would you like to respond to that?
I'm sure, Mayor Boland. I believe, and I'll verify it, Councilmember Dodwell, I do believe we have the project scheduled for design starting next year, followed by a right-of-way acquisition and then construction the year thereafter. So I believe it's 2024 construction. And that's what we're obligated to meet per the federal funding.
That's what was confusing me. So I appreciate that. It was kind of misrepresented a little bit here, or I was reading it wrong. So thank you very much. Also, while I've got the floor, I do want to thank our Director of Public Works for repairing some potholes along Strecker Road. Residents are appreciative.
I will be glad to pass that along to the appropriate parties.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else relative to the Planning and Zoning Commission's 5-year capital improvement plan and the receipt and file? Okay, seeing none, that moves us back to the action items. The first now being the executive session, which we will need a motion, an approved motion to go into closed session, and this will need to be a roll call vote for Missouri law. Would someone like to make a motion to go into closed session made by Councilmember Ottenberg, seconded by Councilmember Brost? Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion on the motion, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll on the motion.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens,
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go into closed session, which means, and if everyone's okay with it, for social distancing and so forth, it would probably be best if we stay in this room, if you're good with that. For those of you who are in the room, not on the council, if you would please let us have some time to ourselves, we would appreciate that. And we will be back shortly. Members of the council will need to turn the microphones off, close laptops, and I believe that's it. Is that correct, Travis? Thank you. That's all right. Thank you for that. All right. So we are going to conclude our work session. If there's nothing under miscellaneous, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the work session of the council made by Councilmember, sorry. No. Oh, we did. Yeah, we did. Thank you for that. So the item that we did in reverse order that's now last, the November meeting, I have a little surprise for you. Hope it's a good surprise. You know that we historically have canceled the second December meeting to give our city team and the council time with your, and the public for that matter, time with your family. So over the last couple of weeks, I've worked diligently with our city administrator and our department heads to basically give you the option to do the same thing for the second meeting in November so that everyone can have Thanksgiving with your family. And the business of the city will proceed as good as it has regardless. So if you want to do that, I would entertain a motion to cancel the second meeting of the council for the month of November. Made by Councilmember Ottenberg, seconded by Councilmember Bartoni. Is there any discussion on the motion? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so that's what we will do. Now, moving to adjournment. Thank you, Councilmember McCut. Yes. Expenditures. We can do that now. Okay, so city administrator brought up similar to the cancellation of the December meeting. The council would need, as it does with that meeting when it's canceled, to give me the authority to approve expenditures. My procedure for that historically is to provide those to you by email before the due date for payment. And if anyone has any objection, you can let me know that. If I don't hear from anyone, then I'll approve them. So if you're good with that, we would need a motion to that effect for the second, for the November expenditures, since you just canceled the second meeting in November. Made by Councilmember Jaxie, seconded by Councilmember McCutcheon. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And thank you, City Administrator Cross and Councilmember McCutcheon, for keeping me on the agenda here. All right. With that, would entertain a motion to adjourn the work session of the council. Made by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Councilmember Nyan, non-debatable. All in favor of the motion to adjourn the work session of the council, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. Now moving next into the main meeting of the council, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the city council for the city of Wildwood for Monday, November the 8th, 2021. Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll.
Mayor Boland,
Here.
Councilmember Galani, Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Jaxie,
Here.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Bros,
Here.
Councilmember Garitano,
Here.
Councilmember Flasher,
Here.
Councilmember Rambo,
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Here.
Councilmember Farmer,
Here.
Councilmember Nyan,
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni,
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Okay, thank you, and welcome everyone, in the audience, and thank you so much for your patience as we finished our work session a little late, past 7. For those of you who are comfortably able, if you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Next, approval of minutes from the October 25, 2021 council meeting. You've been provided with those. If there are any comments to those, we can entertain those now. Otherwise, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Made by Councilmember Eden, seconded by Councilmember Garitano. Any discussion on the motion? See no discussion. All in favor of the motion to approve the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Minutes are approved. Moving next into public participation. Public comment is a valuable component of our meeting. Anyone who wishes to speak must indicate they would like to do that by presenting a speaker card to our city clerk to your left, or using the raise hand feature on Zoom. When your name is called, please state your name and ward. To ensure that all who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, there is a 5-minute time limitation, and I will let you know when that time limit is reached. If you have any questions for us, please mention that during your remarks and identify the official you would like to respond. That official will make note of it, and at the conclusion of public participation, any official who chooses to respond will have 3 minutes to do so as to all questions directed to that official. The official may also choose to respond to your questions after tonight's meeting, and we may also post any of those responses on the city council page of our website. And finally, please be respectful to others in making your remarks. This means that interrupting others and using profane and abusive language are prohibited. And I want to thank everyone in advance for following these. First speaker card, please.
The first speaker card is Tony Salvatore wishing to comment about Veterans Day.
Go ahead.
That way, or? There you go. Be up there. This Thursday, November the 11th, we will celebrate Veterans Day, and most government buildings, including the city of Wildwood, will be closed. Last December, we lost a true patriot and civic leader. He was a Vietnam veteran and retired from the Army as a brigadier general. He was also a 3-term mayor of Baldwin, municipal judge, and a council member of the city of Wildwood. His name was Mr. John Bob. People who knew him described him as passionate, generous, civic-minded, and caring. It was very disconcerting to me when current Wildwood Mayor James Boland started to treat Mr. Bob with total disrespect and bullying him. During one city council meeting, Mr. Boland got in Mr. Bob's face and demanded he change his assigned seating. At this point in Mr. Bob's life, his health was not what it used to be, but he was of sound mind. Can you keep hitting that for me? Just tap it. There you go. There, appreciate it. But he was a sound mind. Mr. Bob would not cower to Mayor Boland's bullying tactics. I have a video of that, and if any of you would like it, I'll send it to you. It's about a 5-minute video showing Mr. Boland bullying Mr. General Bob. Mr. Bob's response to the unprovoked ambush by Mayor Boland was, he wrote this out. He says, Mayor Boland and Mr. Cross, on March 11, 2019, I arrived and encountered your ambush seating arrangement. It is my opinion that this move was uninvited and unfortunate. Please be advised, on March 25th, 2019, I will return to my assigned Ward 6 seat between Ms. McCutcheon and Ms. Jordan. Let this serve as a warning. Further interference or harassment will be reported to the appropriate officials. Respectfully, R. John Bob, Ward 6 Council Member. I will add, as a 22-year veteran, I was also interfered with and harassed by Mayor James Boland. Wonder what he has against veterans. Love those veterans that stand up for their rights, especially First Amendment rights. Rest in peace, General Bob.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please.
The next speaker card is Dan Rochen wishing to comment about trees and sidewalks.
You can do either. If it's implicated by the budget, you could do either one. Okay. Any other comment, speaker cards?
No, I don't have any other speaker cards.
Anyone online? All right. So that concludes public participation. Now going into mayor announcements, we have a couple, one not so good and one excellent. So the not so good one is, we'll do first. We lost one of our team members the last few weeks from Ward 4, Rick Farr, who was a member of our Board of Adjustment for many years. I actually served with him on there, and he did an exemplary job for our city. And more recently, he was appointed to our Board of Ethics. And so I am very sad to tell you that. And I would ask that we stand and observe a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you so much. And now to the more positive one. Would the representatives from the Union Baptist Church please meet me over here to your left? Anywhere you want to go, just around over here. Okay, excellent. So you may recall from the last council meeting that I mentioned the Union Baptist Church, which is in the northern part of our city. It's actually called the Union Baptist Church of Chesterfield, but it is in the city limits of Wildwood. And it is celebrating its 100th anniversary, official anniversary. As Ms. Fraser pointed out at the last meeting, its history actually goes back many years before that. But they are, as I mentioned as well at the last meeting, just a very integral part of our community. Councilmember Garitano, Councilor Edens, and I were actually at their service yesterday where they officially celebrated this event. And it was an excellent time to be there. And I presented the proclamation there. But to make it really official, I invited them back to be here this evening. So I'm just going to read this, if you'll bear with me for a moment. So whereas the Union Baptist Church of Chesterfield is located in Wildwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, whereas it recognizes 1921 as the date on which it was officially formed. Whereas the Union Baptist Church of Chesterfield has participated in numerous community events and enriched the lives of its congregants since that time. Whereas it has been an integral and contributing part of the Wildwood community since its official founding in 1921. And whereas the rich history of the Union Baptist Church of Chesterfield will further the continuation of the church's pivotal role in our community. Now, therefore, it is hereby proclaimed that on this Sunday, November 7, 2021, the city of Wildwood hereby acknowledges the outstanding achievements of the Union Baptist Church of Chesterfield, and further that the city of Wildwood hereby expresses its sincere thanks to each member of the church for being part of our city. Congratulations.
Well, you're not gonna say something.
Ready?
You're welcome. Your council members are, thank you for being here today. You're welcome. Okay, moving next into public hearings. Would you please read the item, Ms. Eldridge?
Proposed 2022 municipal budget.
All right, thank you. City Administrator Cross, would you like to offer any comments relative to the budget?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would like to provide some information. With the assistance of Mr. Newberry, we've got a short PowerPoint presentation. I won't go through every line item on here, but this will give you a quick summary of the salient points of the 2022 operating budget. So if you go to the next slide, please. The general fund is the major operating fund of the city, and this accounts for all the financial resources that are not accounted for in any of the other funds. Next slide, please. This is just a quick summary. And again, most of this is information that council members in particular already know, but shows that we're looking at about $11.4 million in operating revenues. The largest component of operating revenues in the general fund is the general sales tax. That is, we're a pool tax city, so we share in the 1% pool tax. And that is just slightly under 50% of our revenues to the city are from sales taxes. And you can see the other items in terms of utility taxes and public safety tax are the three top components of revenues, comprising $11.4 million. Next slide, please. These are the corresponding expenditures related to that. Most of our expenditures have to do with contracts. The largest one being the police services at $5.1 million projected for 2022. And that is 45% of the $11.4 million in total operating expenditures. You can see that the various departments, Public Works being number two, and as you might imagine, those are the road and bridge and all the infrastructure in the city. Next, this is just a quick summary then of the general fund. I will point out, and it's very, very important to note that this is a balanced budget. This is something that is very important to the mayor and myself in terms of presenting a balanced budget to the council and to the residents of the city of Wildwood. So revenues do slightly exceed expenditures, and we're very proud of that. We've done that each and every year. And so you can see that the general fund balance at $16.9 million. We set aside 25% of operating expenditures each and every year as a contingency. We have the public safety reserve. That's the Prop P fund. So we have an unreserved balance, a free balance, if you will, of $13.1 million in the general fund. The remaining funds, and I'll go through them fairly quickly. The Capital Improvement Sales Tax Fund, that is a result of the half-cent sales tax that the city of Wildwood imposes for general capital improvements. That generates about $2.3 million in sales tax. There are federal and state grants, a little over $800,000 projected for 2022. Total revenues then for this particular fund are $3.1 million, offset then by expenditures, which then park development, roadway improvements, bridge reconstruction, et cetera, represents $4.5 million projected for 2022. Then moving into the Capital Improvement Sales Tax Fund, this is the same one, I apologize, $6.7 million beginning balance. We've discussed the revenues, we've discussed the expenditures. So we ending fund balance in this particular fund of $5.3 million. We've eaten into that fund to the tune of about $1.4 million because there are quite a few expenditures that are projected in 2022 that are utilizing this particular fund. Next fund is the Road and Bridge Fund, and this is financed through sources through the state motor fuel gas tax, which then obviously, well, not obviously, but you're aware of the recent tax that was levied, and so about $140,000 in round numbers is projected for 2022 as part of that new motor fuel gas tax. This particular fund generates about $1.5 million in revenues from the motor fuel gas. Road and bridge is about $970,000. The total revenues is just under $2.5 million for this particular fund. That is offset then by expenditures in terms of capital maintenance and other capital investment items and roadway improvements of about $2.4 million. So that fund stays about the same. We are expending the monies that we are taking in. So we picked up about $80,000 when you see on the, in terms of, next slide, Travis, please. Beginning fund balance of $3.4 million, 3.410, and then we end up with 3.490. So we picked up, added a little bit to that particular fund. The remaining funds, the American Recovery Plan Act, the monies that we received from the federal government as part of the stimulus package, we set that up in a separate fund to keep that separate and distinct from the general fund. And there are particular reasons for doing so, but showing the monies that we received or what we will receive in 2022 from the revenue from that fund. We received half of that, the ARPA money of the $7.15 million that the city is projected to receive. We got 50% of it in September. The other 50% will be 12 months. So it'll be September of 2022 that we will get the second half of that. And this fund just shows revenues coming in 2022 versus expenditures going out. As you all know, we've identified the use of those funds to fund internet to the unserved and underserved areas of the city of Wildwood. Remaining, and I won't go through these in any great detail, but then there's also a town center sewer fund, which financed the sewer infrastructure a number of years back, and then the East and West GTA funds when developments are put in place, and there are funds that flow to the city based on formulas from that. So that is really kind of a high-level summary of the 2022 budget. Again, it is important to point out that it is a balanced budget. The city is very well funded in terms of revenues, and we make sure that we right-size the expenditures to equal the revenues that are taken in. We don't spend money that we don't have in the same manner that the way you treat your budget at home. So, Mr. Mayor and council members, that concludes my presentation about the FY 2022 budget.
Thank you. City Administrator Cross, we have a speaker card, I believe.
Yes, I have a speaker card from Mr. Dan Roten wishing to comment about trees and sidewalks.
Okay, thank you.
Dan Routen, 2520 Peppermill Lake Court, Ward 2. First of all, I guess I'd just like to say that there's probably two ways to discuss a subject, and let's all join in taking the high road. And that's what I'd like to do today. I'm a Brentmore Place trustee representing our HOA. Our development is 40 years old, consists of 110 well-cared for homes, all framed by beautiful trees. Neighbors and visitors all agree a shining example of what a Wildwood community should be. First and foremost, I'd like to express our sincere appreciation to Rick Brown's team for the excellent job they do keeping up with the work required to maintain our development. We stand before you today with two budgetary requests. First, over time, due to old age in combination with the ash borer problem, Brentmore Place has 69 trees that require replanting. We understand 13 will be replanted this calendar year, leaving 56 trees for 2022. Our trees are what make Brentmore Place special and an integral part of Wildwood. Secondly, a project that Rick's team has well underway is sidewalk maintenance. In that case, most of the high spots, which could be ground, have been. The remaining heave slabs need to be replaced, and if not finished this year, need to be carried over. Again, requesting that we replace our trees Hopefully we can find money in the budget to do that, fix our sidewalks. And thank you in advance for your consideration. With your help, Brentwood Place will continue to be one of Wildwood's shining stars. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speaker cards, Ms. Eldridge?
I do not have any more speaker cards.
Anything online? No. Okay. So council members, this is going to be, as you know, one of the items for first reading this evening. Any amendments to the budget, the bill that contains the budget would need to be done at the second reading in December. Just wanted to mention that. So you have heard the city administrator's presentation, and you've also received the materials relative to the budget, the balanced budget underlined, and you've heard from our speaker this evening. So are there any questions at this point or comments? Questions for our city administrator or any comments? Councilmember Edens.
Yes, first I would like to say thanks again to our city administrator, Steve Cross, and our finance officer, Don Kaiser, for another very thorough budget. I think that we all rest easy knowing that our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. And then we just want to make sure that we are focusing on what our residents' concerns are. So I wanted to thank one of my valued trustees, Mr. Dan Roughton, for coming up and speaking today. I want to echo, I'm not sure if other council members in other wards have this brought to them frequently, but this is not the first time I've heard a subdivision in the last year with an issue where a mass number of trees kind of needs replanted. Not just specifically from emerald ash borer, but from several years of compounding tree loss. And so I would like a little bit more clarity because again, Ward 2 can't take all of the tree budget, but certainly we've been saving up for a lot of needs. So I was wondering if the department can give some feedback today. Does the budget look like we can cover, Brentwood's needs and also Chesterfield Valley / Valley View Estates as well? And
Why don't we start with Rick Brown, Director of Public Works, on that question?
Yeah, I think I'm a little confused. I guess the question is it relative to the 2022 budget or the?
Yes.
Yes, as essentially anything, because as you know, we're still working on some final fall planting this year. So anything that we didn't get done that was acknowledged this year and need, so that would be Chesterfield Valley plus Brentmore. Is that feasible in the budget? Taking in mind other needs in the city, or do we need to look at a future increase for tree replacement?
Well, it's difficult to know the exact rate that we're going to lose trees next year. But certainly now that we're aware, I don't know that our figures match up exactly, but we'll dive into them and see exactly where we stand relative to the vacant tree sites in Brentmore. Because I don't think we were aware that we had quite that many vacant sites where trees need to be planted. So we're going to dive into that more carefully. I would also tell you that, and I made a reference to this last week, we got a trim grant from Department of Conservation, and we intend to use that to do a citywide tree inventory. And I think we've been lacking on the data that we have for existing trees, street trees throughout the city. We've got good data for ash trees. We've inventoried the ash trees. We just have not done a recent inventory on all of our street trees. So that grant will go a long ways to giving us some really good data to know what's out there and exactly if there are some sites, some vacant tree sites that we're not aware of. Hopefully we'll determine that and be able to use that moving forward with our estimates for tree planting.
So to the matter at hand, what I would suggest, given his answer, if there's no objection, is that between now and the next meeting, when the budget will be presented for second reading, that Rick, you and your team do an analysis of the tree situation, and while you're at it, I guess the sidewalk situation at Brentmore and as well as Valley View relative to the trees, and compare that, what you find relative to all the other competing interests in the budget, and we'll have that discussion at the next meeting. Is that
That would be wonderful. And with the understanding is that I am well aware that it's important to make progress, but maybe we can't get everything done at once. And if that's the case, then I just need to be able to communicate a timetable back to my residents, so we can do X amount and then X amount the next year and then X amount until it's complete. So if the answer is we can't do it all, I just need a timetable back, but obviously I would love to do it all.
So we'll see what they say. Councilmember Bartoni?
Thank you. And thank you for suggesting that we get that sort of inventory for the next couple of weeks. And I agree with Lauren, we're not expecting all the money just for our ward, although we should, and it would be deserved. But in the meantime, Rick, how much do we have an idea? What does it cost to replace a tree? Like, is it a couple $100, $500? Do we know that? Because we do know what the budget is for tree replacement.
Well, council member, it really depends on the size of tree that we replant, and the removal cost is part of the cost. So we have to remove the tree, grind the stump down, and then come back and plant a tree. All told, I believe it's around $500 to $700 per site. Depends on the size of the tree that you've removed. Obviously, a bigger tree costs more than a smaller tree to remove, so it does vary. But generally, I'd say $500 to $700 per tree per site.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, any other questions for our city administrator relative to the budget? Okay, seeing none, thank you. I would echo the work. I know it's been great working with you and Dawn in relation to arriving at a balanced budget. Okay, moving into legislation, we have one item for second reading, Bill 2647. It's before the council for final passage, and it concerns all wards. Is there a motion for the second reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Dodwell. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2647.
Bill 2647, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending subsection A of section 105.040 of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Wildwood relating to filing procedures for municipal elections, second reading.
Thank you. Does any member, I know Ms. Eldridge explained this as required by Missouri law at the last meeting. Are there any questions for her or anyone else relative to Bill 2647? All right, seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of Bill 2647.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Bertolino,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano,
Yes.
Councilmember Flasher,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan, Councilmember Bartoni, Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Okay, the bill passes. Moving next into first readings, Bill 2650 is before the council and it concerns all wards as well. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember McCutcheon. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2650.
Bill 2650, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute certain public roads, rights of way, and parks maintenance agreements on behalf of the city with certain contractors for public roads, rights of way, and parks maintenance within the city. First reading.
Thank you. Rick Brown, do you have anything you would like to mention relative to Bill 2650?
Mayor Boland, no, I do not, but the department, and I'm sure Joe Vunich is available for any questions relative to the proposed maintenance contracts.
Oh, I'm sorry. So it came from your department. Okay, Mr. Vinich, anything you want to mention relative to Bill 2650?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor, but thank you for asking.
Okay, any questions for either of them from any member of the council relative to the bill? All right, seeing none, moving next to Bill 2651. It's also before the council for first reading, and it concerns three wards, wards 4, 7, and 8. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Flasher, seconded by Councilmember Dodwell. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2651.
Bill 2651, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a supplemental agreement on behalf of the city of Wildwood with Lockmuller Group Incorporated to complete final design with additional required engineering services for the Manchester and Taylor Road resurfacing and signal improvement project. First reading.
Thank you. Rick Brown, do you have anything you want to mention relative to the bill?
Mr. Mayor, no, thank you. I have nothing additional to add at this time, but I'm available for any questions or comments.
All right. Any questions for Rick or any comments relative to Bill 2651 from any member of the council? Seeing none, moving next to Bill 2652. It's before the council for first reading and it concerns Ward 5. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember McCutcheon. Ward 5. Second. Seconded by Councilmember Clark. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2652.
Bill 2652, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement on behalf of the city with KJU Incorporated, doing business as KJ Understall Construction Company for the installation of the Birch Forest Drive turnaround and emergency access drive as shown on the design plans and bid specifications, along with all incidental items. First reading.
Thank you. Rick, do you or Joe have anything you want to mention relative to Bill 2652?
Mr. Mayor, the Department of Public Works does not, and I'll defer to Joe if he has any other comments.
And Mr. Mayor, with your permission, just one item I'd like to note. At the last city council meeting, there was a question regarding KJ Understall Construction Company, and had the city done business with them in the past. The city has not, but our assistant city engineer, Dan Ron, has worked with them in the past at different employment and had no qualms about proceeding forward with this particular company. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McCutcheon.
Joe and Rick, would it be a good idea to go ahead and have a second reading this evening?
We got a monetary implication.
Oh.
I mean, we can do that. It's just the council wants to do it.
Okay.
You can make the motion. It's 21,000.
I was going to defer to Rick and Joe.
Oh, okay. Rick, Joe, do you have an opinion on second reading on this one?
I guess I would say, given the length of the project and the contract time, I don't know there's a huge advantage, quite frankly, to moving ahead expediently at this point in time, but I would certainly defer to the council if they desire to move forward on that.
Okay. Councilor Edens.
Yep, I just wanted everybody to know that after I had some concerns in the last work session. I still have those concerns. I mean, I did drive and look at it. I mean, my thought for what it's worth, and I'm certainly not trying to change the project. I'm just sharing it. So it's not at the last minute. It's not seen as a negative ambush, but so much of my ward dead ends. And it's because the plat was approved by the county often before the city was incorporated, or as a grace the city extended. And so it's not uncommon on streets in my wards for pickup trucks and school buses and emergency vehicles to back up, or for individuals to use driveways. And so when I saw the area, I acknowledge that there's some, it would be nice if they had.
So Councilor, I'm sorry.
I am speaking on the motion, I promise.
I know you are, but, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but debate. So this first reading's information questions, but debate has to be reserved for the second.
I was very long-winded to get towards the question.
Okay.
I'll hurry it up. I guess my question was there not a way considered to just yank out the concrete that is essentially eating into someone's front yard, landscape it, extend the sidewalk into a stub, and then not pour additional concrete for a turnaround, so that it essentially extends as a narrow street? And then just like in my ward, you would just back up if you were a truck, or pull into somebody's driveway and turn around. Was that just not, nobody wanted that and that wasn't considered?
Councilor McCutcheon.
Yes, Councilmember Edens. everyone has issues in their wards. I know other wards have done turnarounds in the same kind of scenario. However, this one was due to the villages of Brightleaf being developed. It's not just a matter of a turnaround. It's a matter of whether the residents, not just from villages of Brightleaf and Evergreen, but residents who come to visit are using that access that emergency access as a drive-through, as a street, as a collector street. And that was not the intention, and that was not the purpose of that. So this is not something that is a trade-off from one ward to another ward. This is a project that has been planned for quite some time, and it's necessary, and we have looked at it every which way possible.
Well, all I was saying was I wasn't talking about extending it as a through street because I know your residents didn't want that. I'm just talking about leaving the barrier and having it end because that's, and I'm not trying to debate. I was just asking if it was even looked at as an option because the city has set that standard in other areas of the city.
Yes, it was looked as an option. And again, there's other areas in the city who do have turnarounds where there was previously a dead end and a cul-de-sac area. So this is nothing new.
But then it's not related to Brightleaf. Like I don't want to get in debate, but I'm never mind.
Brightleaf, it is being used as a thoroughfare, and that's not the intention. And people do get out and move the barriers and drive their cars right through it.
Because I saw the barriers, so.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Might I ask that we have the proposal from the selected vendor attached at the next meeting so that it is consistent with what we've done in the past?
Absolutely. All right, anything further on Bill 2653? All right, moving next to Bill 2654. This is also for first reading concerning our police contract for the ensuing year, and it concerns therefore all wards. Is
Mayor
there-
Boland, we didn't read 2653.
I'm sorry. Oh, you didn't read it. Okay, please read Bill 2653.
Bill 2653, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri adopting, well, I guess I need a first and a second because I don't have a first and a
I
second.
think we did skip
skipped-
that.
Yeah, Bill 2652.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got mixed up on my numbers. We're moving next to Bill 2653.
Correct.
All right, and it is before the council for first reading. It concerns all wards. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? It's not the police contract. It is the municipal budget. Thank you. Is there a motion for the first reading? Thank you, Councilmember Bros, seconded by Councilmember Farmer. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2653.
Bill 2653, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri adopting the municipal budget and capital improvement program for the city of Wildwood for fiscal year 2022 first reading.
Thank you. City Administrator Cross, do you have anything further you want to mention relative to the bill?
No, Mr. Mayor, but I'm available for any additional questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Steve or any comments? All right, so we do have a couple of items we're going to hear about between now and the next meeting when it's up for debate and or amendment. Now moving next to the police contract, it's Bill 2654, and it's for first reading as well, and it concerns all wards. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? Made by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Councilmember Garetano. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2654.
Bill 2654, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to execute a police service agreement by and between St. Louis County and the city of Wildwood, first reading.
Thank you. One thing I want to mention relative to this bill, and you'll have it consistent with Councilmember Dodwell's comment or question rather on the two bills prior. We're going to have a contract that'll be attached to the bill for the council to review. You'll have that obviously before the meeting, and it's going to be a little different than past years. So we go through this every year, but this particular contract is going to be updated, not in terms of financial terms or anything of that nature, more in terms of legalese, because the contract that we've been operating under for a number of years is fairly sparse in a number of respects, and we just sort of keep renewing that. And so the city attorney has been asked, and he's, I believe, nearly done with a revised draft. And my understanding is you're working with the point of contact we have at the county police to achieve that. Is that correct, City Attorney Young?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you have any questions on that here, I can answer them, but we're just basically going to get a better document, what it really amounts to, a little more sophisticated. It allocates a lot of money, and it's a very important part of our city. Okay, any comments or questions on Bill 2654? All right, seeing none, moving next to Bill 2655. It is before the council for first reading as well, the last one for tonight's meeting, and it concerns all wards. Is there a motion for the first reading of the bill? We have a Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Bartoni. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read Bill 2655.
Bill 2655, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, submitting to the qualified voters of the city at the general municipal election to be held in the city on April 5th, 2022, a proposed local use tax, first reading.
Thank you. So as you may recall, we had quite a bit of discussion about this at the last meeting with the history and what it achieved and didn't achieve and so forth. So are there any questions on that, Councilmember McCutcheon?
Yeah, I don't know if it's written in a manner that it absolutely has to be, but I read it and I know what the purpose is, and I was very confused.
City Attorney Young? And you're talking about the header or the actual language?
The actual portion that's going to be on the ballot.
Okay. City Attorney Young.
Well, what will appear on the ballot is the language set forth in section 3, which shall be the statement, shall the city of Wildwood, Missouri impose a local use tax at the same rate as the total local sales tax rate, provided that if the local sales tax rate is reduced or raised by voter approval, the local use tax rate shall also be reduced or raised by the same action. And this is the statutorily suggested language.
Is it your position that it can't be made any more user-friendly?
I would keep it as substantially provided by statute.
So respecting that, of course, between now and the next meeting, if you could just take a look at it. Is that what you were referring to? Is that language? It is rather cumbersome.
And I understand. Well, let me ask the question. What is the confusion? What is the concern?
I don't think it's clear what the tax is being asked for or what it's going to be used for.
And it seems to be around, seems to be kind of round robin, one tax related to another tax, but not that tax and this tax and back and forth.
Well, and that's intentional in the statute. The use tax follows whatever the local sales tax is. So as it goes up and down, the use tax will go up and
Let
down.
me ask this question. Can the city, if this passes the council and it gets on the ballot, can the city adopt, with your drafting, of course, the council adopt, in essence, what I would call a preamble that explains what it does? So keep this language, but it has explanatory prefacing remarks as to what this actually does and does not do.
In the bill, yes. In the ballot language, no.
In the bill, in this bill, but in the ballot language, no.
No, we could not do that in the ballot language.
Okay. Councilor Bartoni.
Thank you. I think the part that's a little confusing is, Joe was on the Missouri Municipal League and all you heard was Wayfair, 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 internet tax, and neither one of those are mentioned. So that's kind of like, why, what are we voting on? I mean, I think that's just a little bit confusing. So I think also, is it the Missouri Municipal League that is going to help promote the passage of this? If I remember correct, or wasn't there?
St. Louis Metro Municipal.
St. Louis. Okay. So if they're going to do that, and I think there was like some sort of a intention to have like all the municipalities that are voting on this to have similar type of language, like is this what's going to be on every municipal ballot? Like we know that, or we're assuming that?
This is the statutory language and the language that was promoted by the Metropolitan, the Metro League.
So maybe we could just find out, like from, I don't know, Ellisville, I mean, just like, another handful of municipalities that we're friendly with, like, are you using this language or do you decide to go in your own direction? Because
Okay,
Deborah's right. This doesn't say, I mean, at the end of the day, it's an internet tax and it doesn't say that. So I think that's where the confusion's coming from.
Councilmember Farmer.
I was just going to ask if we know that other municipalities are doing it and there's going to be a pretty wide education that goes along with this, then it would probably serve us, be in our best interest to go along with that wider group's education and try to reinvent the wheel ourselves.
Councilmember Bertolino.
Yeah, John, can we, I know there's a very thin line between promoting and informing. Is it information for informational purposes? Can we use our Gazette? Can we use our website to further explain what this tax is about? Or do we have to stay away from that?
You can inform, yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Garitano.
Yeah, and this is for what Councilmember Bartoni said, the key word is education, because advocacy for or against the bill is something that you can't do with public funds. So there will be educational information that is going to be probably consistent throughout all the state, because a lot of cities are trying to put it on the same time. The messaging that people will see out there will be consistent across the board. But again, it's got to be educational with that regard because of what was just mentioned.
Do you want to say anything further, City Administrator Cross?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Bartoni, Chesterfield had this same issue on their council agenda a couple of weeks back or so, and virtually same language. Ellisville, same way. So this is pretty much this is the language that everybody is using. Yes, sir.
Okay, anything for Councilmember Ottenberg?
So I have a question, and I think a couple of the people here tonight already sort of alluded to it, and that's the confusion over the bill. I found that the memorandum that the city administrator sent out today regarding details of the use tax to be very useful in spelling out the various scenarios that could result after a vote in April. In other words, if the city of Wildwood passes a tax proposal and the county does not, or if the county passes a tax proposal and the city does not. And I was curious, this memorandum is accessible on the city's website right now by the general public. So could this be considered a public document that could be handed out to constituents to help them clarify in their own minds what could possibly happen depending upon how they choose to vote in April?
The short answer to that is yes. I would ask that the city attorney take a look at that memo before we do something like that to make sure that, because I don't know the context within which he wrote that, which may be different than simply informing the public. So I would ask the city attorney to look at that, and if he finds anything that might need to be reworded to make sure that we're not promoting it with that memo, that he worked with the city administrator to do it. But I think in essence, what I said, just knowing our city administrator and what he writes in those things, that I think the short answer is probably yes, we can do that as a reference document.
That's great, because what I'm looking for is an objective document that I can hand to a constituent so they can sort of draw their own conclusions.
Okay. We'll ask without objection the city administrator to work with our city attorney and achieve that and get that to the council prior to the next meeting. Okay. Any objection to that? All right. That's what we'll do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. That takes us to, that ends our first readings. We're now on the consent agenda. We have no resolutions. We have two items. Relative to the consent agenda. The first is November 2021 expenditure. So I thought we just got through discussing that in work session, and yet we have it on here.
Mayor Bowen, that you're correct. That was discussed in the work session, but it was on the regular session agenda.
Oh, because we needed to in case the council didn't approve the other motion. Yep. Thank you for, that's right. Okay. So this will then need to be let's see, how do we want to handle that? Well, actually, it's by virtue of the council's action. At the
You
work
already,
session,
yeah, it's been handled.
I'll just keep it on and make the motion because this is the meeting at which expenditures are considered.
And make the motion. Oh, again, that the mayor approve these. Okay. So the city attorney is recommending that the motion that the council approved in the work session at the suggestion of our city administrator relative to the mayor having the authority to approve November expenditures be made again in the open meeting. And this relates to the cancellation of the November. We're just going to do a twofer here. And as I mentioned earlier, my process when the council has done that previously with respect to the December expenditures, when we don't have the second meeting in December, is to have those provided by email to the council before I approve those, and to take into account any objections or comments that I get from any member of the council. If I don't hear from you by a certain date, I approve those. So would someone like to make that motion again? That the mayor has the ability to approve November expenditures, made by Councilmember Jaxi, second by Councilmember Farmer. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So next of our two items on the consent agenda is the appointment of Ed Kahn. He's the representative liaison member from Planning and Zoning Commission to the Architectural Review Board. This is really, he's already sitting in that capacity. And this is really just a formality, given the changes that the council made to the ARB structure at the last meeting. He needs to be appointed. And the way that works, he would be appointed by the mayor. This will, with approval of the council, and this appointment will continue through the April election, correct? Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to continue to have him through that time period? Made by Councilmember Nyan, seconded by Councilmember Clark. Any discussion on the motion to continue with Mr. Khan in that capacity? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, anything under miscellaneous? Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy time with your family, and to our team members and our police officers, this will be hopefully, this was hopefully a nice surprise for you this evening. And so anyway, we'll see you at the next meeting, which will be the first meeting in December. All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by Councilmember Dodwell, seconded by Councilmember Bros, non-debatable. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We are adjourned.